Hello. You may well be wondering why I'm wearing sunglasses with red flashing lights, earphones connected to this rather strange looking device on the desk beside me, while listening to unusual sounding music. So, let me explain. In my previous video, I described ways of recording electrical activity in the brain in order to enable people to relax more deeply, to manage their anxiety more effectively, and to learn or study with more level of alertness. Today, I want to discuss ways in which you can entrain the brain to move into a state of mind which is both beneficial to you at that particular moment. As I say, to become more relaxed if you're feeling anxious, or to become more alert if you're not feeling very much up to the mark when you're studying. So, what do I mean by entrain your brain? Well, imagine a crowd of people strolling casually along the street, all out of step with one another. Suddenly, a military band strikes up with a blood-stirring march. Within moments, you'll find that every man, woman and child in that crowd is marching together. They're marching in unison. They are entrained. Research has shown that the neurons in your brain can be made to march in step, as it were, with one another in order to create and lock into a particular state of mind. One of these mental states in which I've been particularly interested over the years is the alpha state. Now, as I explained in my previous video, this consists of electrical patterns to the brain with frequencies of between 8 and 14 Hertz or cycles per second. If you are looking at a flashing light and the flicker rate becomes faster, it can move your brain into a beta state when you want to become more mentally alert or active. I've worked with many clients over the past 40 years, in some cases to overcome anxiety and stress-related problems, in others to improve their mental or athletic performance. I'd like to show you a short clip from a film I made on this subject for BBC TV several decades ago.
One of the 200 people David says have tried the plan already is Kevin O'Neill. What's it done for him? Kevin competes in an incredible event called the triathlon. It's long-distance swimming and cycling and running.
The distances vary from about a mile swim, 25-mile ride and a 6-mile run up to a full Ironman distance, which is a 2.4-mile swim, 112-mile ride and a 26-mile run. But you don't do many of those in one season. Last season I had a lot of trouble with stitches. Coming off the bike, when you're hunched up, when you straighten out on the run, I found my stomach cramped up in every event. Well, I've been using the Alpha plan to warm the stomach muscles in training and just imagine the pain sort of flowing out of the legs. And I found in this season, in racing, every time I've had a stitch, it's gone within 1 or 2 kilometres. I just don't seem to have bad races anymore. Every time something goes wrong, I'm able to focus myself on my racing, on what I'm doing. So as a result of that, I'm performing far more consistently.
Overall, his improvement has been quite remarkable. He's very, very pleased with it. He was the first British competitor past the post in the Nice triathlon, which is one of the big European contests. And he now works for a French triathlon team as a professional competitor.
Kevin really does look like a good advert for Alpha. It worked for him.
The power of flickering lights to produce an altered state of mind has been known for millennia. Sitting around a blazing fire in the ancient world, people would often hallucinate their altered states of consciousness being brought on by the flickering flames. So-called wise men or wizards would very often use a fire in order to put themselves in a state of mind where they could make pronouncements, apparently from the gods. I first started to experiment with the devices I'm going to show you when I became very interested in finding ways of enabling my clients to overcome their anxiety, and especially to overcome phobic attacks, which was my area of special research. Agoraphobia, fear of going out in the open, not in so much in open spaces, but into shops and marketplaces. Any of you who have suffered from a phobia will know how very distressing and disabling this can be, especially agoraphobia, which can confine people to their homes. At that time, there was emerging evidence from some researchers that it was possible to entrain the brain, that is, to persuade it to adopt a particular frequencies, by flashing lights into their eyes or sounds into their ears, which also had the required frequency. When I embarked on this research in the late 1980s, I started working with an ordinary household lantern like this one, which had been fitted with a red filter and simple electrodes that enabled the rate of the bulb's flashing to be changed across a fairly wide range by means of this control on the side. My client or my research subjects would be seated in a comfortable armchair with their eyes closed and with the lantern placed a few feet away from them. With their eyes closed, instead of seeing just a single red light flashing, the wearer experiences a vast range of different colours, shapes and designs, all moving rapidly before their eyes. Unfortunately, these amazing images, they are really spectacular, are unique to each individual and can only be seen through the closed eyes, so it's not possible to show them on a video. You have to experience it for yourself. After a year or so, I met up with a medical doctor friend of mine who was developing goggles fitted with LEDs, which he thought might help his patients suffering from migraines. Now, I remember his initial design really comprised nothing more complicated than a couple of small bulbs glued to the inside of a pair of swimming spectacles. But before too long, these had developed into far more sophisticated types of glasses, the ones which we built in my laboratory and which I was then using. So here's an example of an early model which my colleagues and I designed for use in the laboratory and later in the field with clients. Later we were able greatly to reduce the size and complexity of this device to produce a pocket-sized version which clients could safely and easily use at home. The person simply places 2 fingers on these triangular metal sensors, and this measures his or her level of what is called sympathetic arousal, that is related to levels of stress or relaxation. And these change the speed of strobing in the lights. As he or she becomes more relaxed, the sequence changes to reinforce his or her deeper feelings of relaxation. These proved so popular that before very long commercial companies came forward to develop their own versions. Here's a model which I've been using for the past few years, made by Orion. It offers the wearer programs which will enable them to choose a sequence of lights which best suits their needs. Controls on the top of the machine adjust the level of volume and the brightness of the LEDs, because we vary very greatly in the strength of the light we prefer to see. Some people are very sensitive to need very dim lights. Although this particular device no longer seems to be available, I haven't been able to find it on the internet, you will find a range of this type of equipment available through various suppliers on the internet if you're interested. Instead of flashing lights seen through closed eyelids, this device, manufactured by Neutronics, enables your eyes to remain open, and you'll see a range of coloured lights projected onto opaque glasses which produce what is called the Ganzfeld effect. So what is the Ganzfeld effect? Well, the term comes from the German for complete field, and it describes a visual phenomena caused when someone experiences an unstructured and uniform visual stimulation. When coupled with a flickering light, the result is the generation of geometrical patterns and designs, as I explained with the LEDs, but it is a much more relaxing way to get these states, and much more beautiful in effect. It's a very beautiful little device. These are Laxman goggles. While they're certainly not cheap, they are, in my view, one of the most elegant and effective devices I have come across. I have not, however, researched these goggles with an EEG connected to see exactly what frequencies they seem to produce, which are favoured with each of the different programs. But my subjective impression is that, for example, the programs designed to produce alpha do give you a sense of deep relaxation, and I've also found it has helped my ability to sleep more soundly. The final device I'd like to show you is called the Mind Play, and you can also purchase it off the internet. Again, it's not particularly cheap, but it is a very interesting piece of equipment. It comes with its own software. I've included the URL of the site where you can purchase these at the end of this video. This device comes closest to the EEG systems I showed you in the previous video, where I showed you how people could learn to control a toy train, for example, simply by putting themselves in the right state of mind. As I explained, EEG in this case is read not from the whole brain, but just from the frontal regions of the brain. It connects by Bluetooth to your computer, and it's not only possible to see how the brain is functioning in terms of the different frequencies it produces, but also to use it to play various games. There's an archery game where you can use your brain to direct an arrow to the bullseye. One of the games I found the most interesting, although certainly not relaxing, is a game in which you chase a villain through the streets of London and jump over various obstacles. It's really quite an exciting chase game. It's very entertaining if it's not particularly relaxing. It's an unusual way of learning to entrain the higher frequencies of your brain in order, this is what the manufacturers claim, to enhance alertness and improve mental performance. Before closing this video, I'd like to make 2 points. The first is to assure you that I'm not being paid by any of the manufacturers or companies which I have mentioned in this video. I'm not trying to promote their products. They are simply devices which I've used in my professional life, both personally and when helping clients. My second point is that all these devices, while they can be helpful and entertaining and intriguing indeed, they are only likely to help those with a moderate level of anxiety or stress. If you have a serious anxiety, or for example a problem with your anger, then in my view, you'd be far better placed to see a professional therapist, one who specialises in this form of neurotraining and neurofeedback. In the United States especially, I know that there are a large number of such practitioners to be found in most of the states of the Union. In the UK and Europe, they certainly exist, and I believe that they've been growing in numbers, although they may be slightly harder to track down and maybe less local for you. So again, I suggest you go on the internet and have a look at this kind of neurotherapy program practitioners. One of the most interesting approaches I've come across recently has been developed by Dr. Len Ox, who's a United States and American psychologist, and he's developed a program called LENS, L-E-N-S, and this stands for Low Energy Neurofeedback System. Here, rather than trying to entrain the brain, His approach is to disentrain the brain in order to eliminate patterns of thought which can, for example, produce high levels of anxiety or outbursts of uncontrollable anger. Kind of got locked into this position, which very often happen with people, so their minds go round and round in a circle. He reported working with one client, for example, who'd had 20 years of rages, outbursts of anger which in some cases lasted a couple of weeks at a time, and clearly this made it impossible for him to work. Another was a woman who worked for a major retail chain at an upper level management, and she'd been under increasing work pressure and was extremely depressed and anxious. Again, he's trying to help her by disentraining her brain to those unhelpful patterns of thought. So if you're interested in learning more of his very interesting work, you can watch Dr. Ox explain his approach on YouTube. In my next video, I'll be describing other types of feedback I've used in my clinical and research work over the years, starting with simple devices which monitor levels of anxiety or relaxation, not via your brain, but via your fingertips. So, until next time, goodbye and thank you very much for watching.